So you want to teach your children how to read. Well, you've come to the right video. Here are the detailed steps we took to teach each of our older two boys to read by 4. And while I'm so grateful for my professional experience as a school counselor and formerly an ABA therapist, my favorite job by far, y'all, is being a mama, and a homeschool mama at that. Join me for chats on intentional parenting tips that helps your home thrive. So we're jumping right in here. The first thing that I do with each of my children, and you guys, my older two are actually taking a reading break from their lessons right now, and I literally have y'all in my homeschool room, so we're just getting down. If you see magnet tiles on the floor, tunnels out back behind, tables with books, this is the world of a homeschool parent. So the first thing that I must emphasize if you are going to teach your child to read is a focus on phonics. Phonics are the basic building blocks to reading. Reading as a whole is decoding. So teaching your kids phonics is teaching them how to decode words, which is the whole basis of reading. There's a very interesting podcast called Sold a Story that really does a deep dive into where a lot of Western schools have gone awry with teaching reading. But basically, y'all, we gotta bring it back to the fundamentals, which is phonics. So phonics is teaching the basic letter sounds. As early as infants, I begin teaching my kids phonics. And what I do is I sometimes use flashcards because I'm that parent. I love flashcards. I love these because it has a ring on it. I'll put a link in the description box if you're interested. But literally, I teach them A says ah, like apple. B says b, like ball, and so on. And I do this nearly every day, at least every weekday. With my little ones, starting as early as possible. Now, the medium that I use, which brings me to my second point, is books. So you want to read books and read often with your little ones as you start the process of teaching reading. The key is laying down a good foundation, and starting to stoke a love for reading is going to be so important with teaching reading. Because honestly, y'all, the process of teaching reading can be like not fun. It's not really this like romantic thing. It's pretty dry sometimes when you're just going through phonics and you're doing blended sounds. It can be kind of dry. So you want to prime them so that they know what the end result is, which is reading these amazing stories and experiencing these really awesome adventures through written word. So you want to read with your kids. My oldest was an infant and I was home and full-time as a homemaker. One of the things that I would do is when I would read a book, I would choose books that were very phonics centric. So books like this, Pandas Love Peas. I'll leave links for all of these things in the description box because I know I'm gonna be throwing a lot at y'all today. But books like Pandas Love Peas, or this one. This is like literally my lesson book for my 2-year-old right now. Just going through books like this every day that have a literal focus on the letters and the sounds is, oh my word, the best foundation for teaching reading. You will thank me later. So focus on phonics, read texts that are phonics based that really encourage you to weave in that understanding of letter sounds and eventually blending of sounds. In our household, all of that has happened with the introduction of phonics and teaching those initial phonic sounds. That usually happens between like 0 and 0 to 3. By the time my kiddos are approaching their 4th birthdays, so far, each of them have really initiated a desire to want to start blending and reading. And so at that point, that is when I begin to introduce a formal phonics curriculum. Now, I do want to preface it, not every kid is gonna be ready to read at 4 years old. Mine were because they just were, y'all. Maybe it's because I just knew in my mind as soon as my first one was born that homeschooling was a decision that we were gonna wanna make. So I just put myself in the headspace that we're just gonna go ahead and start this thing. And so perhaps that's why mine were ready at 4 years old. However, in a lot of nations where reading literacy rates are actually better than the US, like a lot of the Nordic countries, they do not actually start formal reading instruction until around 7 years old. So you also want to keep that in mind. If your kiddo's not ready for formal reading instructions, like, it is okay. And so I'm just sharing the tips with how I got them started and how each of them so far, my older two at least, have gotten to go with reading. So when I'm ready to introduce a formal reading curriculum, this has been the one that I have leaned into. So initially with my oldest, I just needed something that gave me like some bones on this process of teaching reading, because everyone knows that reading is so important for academic success, but just like life launching abilities, right? So I wanted to make sure that I laid down a really good foundation with teaching reading. And so far with my currently 6-year-old and my now 4-year-old, this book has been the one that I have gone back to for both. I actually pivoted for a time and tried a different curriculum, but for my 4-year-old, when we started the process, however, it just didn't land. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. Like, just because something works for this person does not always mean that it will work for the next. However, both of my older two boys very much responded very well to Teach Your Child to Read with 100 Easy Lessons. I love this book for teaching reading because it goes over those basic phonics sounds that you've already primed your little one if you're doing it in this method. It goes over those, but then it also teaches the mechanics of reading in a way that I think is very beneficial, where it doesn't teach you to break up each sound as you're reading, but it really encourages you to blend the sounds as you're reading. So I think that has been really good for building fluency, especially in my 6-year-old who is now reading for fun.
Building a roller coaster. Riding a roller coaster is a lot of fun, but building one is very juice.
Let's go back and try that again. Keep it down.
Serious business, because everything must be built to ensure the passengers will be safe.
Which roller coaster looks the funnest to you? And I can definitely see the benefit with my 4-year-old who is more in the beginning stages of reading. Say it fast.
Tour bus.
Tour bus. Good job reading, honey.
Hey, can I read about?
So what we have found though is, though we really like Teach Your Child to Read with 100 Easy Lessons, I have found that we have had to supplement it with a couple things just to make sure that we don't have any gaps in reading, because English in particular is real funny with the rules, to where, you know, you have a word that would look the same but then it does not use those rules at all. So we've supplemented it with the logic of English, just like their flashcard system. Y'all, listen, all of the things that I'm listing here, I will have them in the description box. However, you can likely find these things used. So, you know, keep that in mind. Some things I did buy brand new, like Teach Your Child to Read for 100 Easy Lessons, because I knew that I intended on using that all the way through for each of my kids. So I wanted it new because I knew it'd be worn down by the time it got to my youngest. So, you know, some things, yes, if you can find them new and they're not too, if they're not gonna break the bank, then go for it, you know? And everyone has their preference with you know, new versus used, but I definitely don't think that you need to buy everything brand new. So in addition to supplementing with the logic of English, the main reason we did this was to teach all those little funny English rules that we don't think of. For those of us, aka adults, who've been reading for a time, we tend not to think about them because our minds just automatically pick up on it and just know because we've been exposed to it time and time again. However, for our little guys, we've gone back in and supplemented with things like this to encourage them and to just grow their phonemic awareness of different letter sounds and combinations. In addition to supplementing our Teach Your Child to Read with 100 Easy Lessons with just the logic of English, like if you can find the flashcards, chef's kiss. But if you can't, you can look it up and make your own flashcards. I know we made flashcards and then we would always lose them, which is why I love the little one with the ring that I was showing you earlier. But in addition to teaching with the Teach Your Child to Read with 100 Easy Lessons, as well as the logic of English, like phonemic flashcards, we also love Bob Books. So we've started our 4-year-old now on Bob Books, and he loves them. Now that he's gotten like the mechanics of reading down, these books have been a great way of allowing your child to successfully read and complete a book. And then of course, as you're teaching reading, one of the important things that you want to do is weave in comprehension as you're going. So we don't just want to teach them the mechanics of reading, like we don't want to just teach them C-A-T together spells cat. We also want them to start to make the connection that these letters together make this word, and this word means cat, right? Like a meow, meow, cat. And so as you're reading, I think the Bob Books are a really cool way and simple way of starting to gently introduce that process, the comprehension piece to reading, because reading is not just the mechanics of it, it's also the comprehension piece. Once we cross that bridge from 4 to 5, with teaching our kids to read, since we have now at this point started teaching our children to read literally right before their 4th birthdays, there's just that interest. Typically by the time they're 5, then we start them with a formal language arts curriculum. My oldest currently is using The Good and the Beautiful, and we've really loved that for language arts. I'll probably follow up with that another time. At any rate, y'all, I hope that this detailed guide in how we taught our children how to read has been helpful for you. Feel free to drop any comments in the description box. What are some other things that you have used as a homeschool family that you have found very helpful in teaching your children to read? I'd love to hear about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow. Bye.